The bitter wind cut through the city streets as the sun dipped behind the skyline, leaving only streaks of orange and pink in the sky. On a cracked sidewalk near the corner of Maple and Fifth, a young man with a worn-out guitar sat cross-legged, strumming softly. His name was Daniel, 24 years old, with messy brown hair and a faded jacket that barely kept the cold at bay. His fingers trembled slightly, not just from the winter chill, but from hunger. He hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. The street was busy, people rushing home with shopping bags and warm coats, barely sparing a glance at the struggling musician. A few coins clinked in his open guitar case, but it wasn't enough for a meal. Still, he kept playing, letting his music spill into the noisy street. It was the only thing he had left, the one piece of himself that hadn't been taken by hardship. Daniel's life hadn't always been like this. Just a year ago, he was working at a small music store, teaching kids to play guitar on weekends, sharing an apartment with a roommate. But when the store shut down and his roommate moved away, his life spiraled. Rent piled up, opportunities vanished, and before long, he was on the street with nothing but his guitar and a few clothes in a backpack. Music was all he had to fight the silence of loneliness. That night, as his fingers danced across the strings, a soft melody rose into the cold air. He poured his heart into it, thinking about his mother's smile, the warmth of home-cooked meals he hadn't tasted in months, and the life he used to have. Most people didn't stop, but one man did. A tall stranger in his 50s, with salt-and-pepper hair and a long navy coat, paused. He listened quietly, hands in his pockets, eyes thoughtful. When Daniel noticed him, he offered a small, tired smile and kept playing. After a moment, the man knelt down. "You play beautifully," the stranger said. "Thank you," Daniel replied, his voice hoarse. "Do you perform somewhere?" Daniel shook his head. "Just here, the streets are all I've got now." Something in his words made the stranger's chest tighten. He reached into his pocket and dropped a folded bill into the guitar case. Daniel nodded in gratitude, but the man didn't walk away. Instead, he asked, "Have you eaten tonight?" Daniel hesitated, pride warring with need. "Not today." "Come with me," the man said gently. "I know a place." For a moment, Daniel was cautious, but something about the man's kind eyes broke down the wall he had built around himself. He followed him into a small diner 2 blocks away, where the warmth and smell of grilled food nearly brought tears to his eyes. The man ordered a burger and soup for Daniel, watching quietly as the young man devoured the meal like he hadn't eaten in days. Over dinner, Daniel shared bits of his story. He didn't whine or beg. He just spoke with quiet honesty about losing his job, his home, and the way the world had stopped seeing him. The man listened intently, introducing himself as Mr. Hayes, a retired music producer who had once discovered street performers and helped them launch careers. "You have a gift," Mr. Hayes said softly. "Your music, it's real. It comes from pain and people feel that." Daniel's eyes glistened, unsure if he should believe this stranger's words. "Would you play for me tomorrow?" Mr. Hayes asked. "I have a little studio in my home. I want to record you." The next day, Daniel arrived, nervous and unsure, clutching his guitar. Mr. Hayes' home studio was small but filled with warmth and old memories, guitars on the wall, gold records gleaming softly. For hours, Daniel played his heart out, recording song after song while Mr. Hayes listened and guided him. Weeks passed, and Daniel's life began to shift. Mr. Hayes shared his recordings online, and people were moved by the raw emotion in his voice and strings. Donations came in, and an opportunity to perform at a local cafe emerged. Daniel bought new strings for his guitar, new clothes with Mr. Hayes' help, and even rented a small room to sleep safely at night. Months later, Daniel stood on a small stage at a charity concert organized by Mr. Hayes. The crowd was silent as his fingers touched the strings. He played the same melody he had played on the freezing sidewalk that night, the one that carried his pain, hope, and heart. But now, it was met with thunderous applause. As the last note faded, Daniel's eyes searched the crowd until he found Mr. Hayes smiling proudly in the front row. Tears welled in his eyes. He realized that one act of kindness, one person who chose to see him when the world walked past, had changed his life forever. he dedicated his final song to the man who had saved him, saying softly into the microphone, "Sometimes, all it takes is one person to hear your music, and your life will never be the same." Shorter, emotionally stronger version. Daniel, a young street musician, sat shivering on a freezing city sidewalk, strumming his old guitar for passing strangers who barely noticed him. Hunger gnawed at him, and loneliness weighed heavy on his heart. Then, a kind man stopped, listened, and offered him not just money, but a meal and conversation. That man, Mr. Hayes, a retired music producer, saw something in Daniel the world had ignored. He invited him to record his music, shared it online, and helped him step out of the shadows of the street. Months later, Daniel played to a cheering crowd, his life transformed forever by one act of kindness that proved humanity still exists.